So in today's video, we're going to talk about va. Va. What the hell is va? So in today's video, we're going to talk about VA, or maneuvering speed. It's one of the many V speeds we learn about during our flight training, like VY, best rate of climb, or VX, best angle of climb. And no, that was a sad attempt at humor. We don't pronounce the V speed out as a word, so it's not va, or vi, vux, ver, vno, vni. So what is maneuvering speed? What's it mean to me as a pilot? There are quite a few websites and other videos, yes, this is yet another video on maneuvering speed, that describe it in a variety of ways. Some will say it's an airspeed where if you fly at that airspeed or slower, the airplane will stall before it brakes. Okay, somewhat correct. What maneuvering speed really is, it defines a limitation on the aircraft, a speed limitation, where if you deflect one control, typically we use the elevator as our example, from full stop to full stop, that the wing or control surface that control is manipulating will exceed the critical angle of attack and stall before it exceeds its maximum load factor, or G force. We'll use load factor and G's interchangeably. Maneuvering speed also depends upon the weight of the aircraft. The lighter you are, the lower that airspeed is. And actually, it's not the only V speed, spoiler alert. Many other V speeds decrease with decreased weight. Rotate, VY, VX, your stall speeds. Some V speeds aren't impacted by weight at all. They're determined simply because of the amount of air moving across the airframe, such as your flaps extension speed, gear extension speed, VNE, the never exceed speed, the little red line on your airspeed indicator that mostly we're hard pressed to hit unless you're a lawn dart. So near the last half of the video, we'll talk about why maneuvering speed changes with weight. But first, let's kind of go through maneuvering speed and how it does protect us if we just suddenly take the control wheel and haul back on it and we don't want to break the airplane. So let's say we're flying in typical Cessna 172, which has a maximum gross weight of 2,300 pounds. And our maneuvering speed, published in the POH, says 97 knots. And our POH doesn't list intermediate weights with lower speeds. So we're going to have to calculate that here at the tail end. So remember, lift equals weight, thrust equals drag. So I need 2,300 pounds worth of lift. And we're going to go into full cruise power, full rental power. And to do that, we've got our relative wind, our perfectly drawn airfoil, and let's say we're cruising at 115 knots, and it takes 3 degrees angle of attack to hold up that 2,300 pounds worth of airplane. Great. And we're doing 1G, because we're just in unaccelerated flight. So now we need 2 gauges in our airplane. We need an angle of attack gauge, which you might actually have, and we need a load factor, or G meter gauge. Angle of attack, let's say 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. Generally, most general aviation airplanes have a critical angle of attack around 18 degrees. Might be a little more, might be a little less. And now we've got our G meter, which your airplane might very well have too. 1G, 2, 3, 4. Most general aviation airplanes in the normal category, as far as weight and balance, have a maximum G loading factor of about 3.8 Gs. Utility category, it goes up a little bit. We're going to stick with normal category for this. So we're flying along, and we haul back on the control wheel. Thunk! The airplane is going to kind of do a wheelie, so the angle of attack is going to increase very dramatically, very abruptly, and it's going to start spooling up. As we do that, we're going to start pulling some G's in the airplane. And if you're trying to figure out what G's feel like, let's say you're doing steep turns at the private pilot level at 45 degrees bank, you're pulling about 1.44 G's. 60 degrees of bank, you're pulling roughly 2 G's. So we pull back on the control wheel, thwink. Our angle of attack starts increasing, and our G's start increasing. We pull back, angle of attack comes to 6, comes up here to 9, to 12. Well, I've already exceeded the load factor. To 15, now we're up here at like 5 G's. 18, so I don't hit my critical angle of attack until I'm pulling 6 G's, and we can encounter structural damage on the aircraft. So how do I protect for that? Well, we slow down to maneuvering speed, 97 knots. So I pull out some power, nose wants to drop, we don't want to lose altitude, so we pull back, we retrim, and we find a new pitch attitude that holds up 2,300 pounds at this slower airspeed. It's a little dramatic there, but let's say that's 5 degrees at 97 knots. My pen's giving out on me. So now I'm starting out a little closer to my critical angle of attack than I was over here doing 115 knots. I'm still pulling 1 G though. We're just flying along. We're just flying along like this instead of like this. So we haul back on the wheel. We're starting out at 5 degrees angle of attack. We come up to 10, we come up to 15, we come up to 20. So right around the time you hit the critical angle of attack, you're also getting pretty close to the maximum load factor of 3.8. It's like 3.6 or so if you really did the math. We hit the critical angle of attack, the wing stalls, and everything unloads. We've protected ourselves. And remember, this is for one control input, okay? Just the hauling back of the elevator. If we also stomp on the rudder pedal at the exact same time, then this maneuvering speed is meaningless to us. It's defined for one full control deflection input, full stop to full stop. If you hit 2 of them, then you're a test pilot. All sorts of chaos can ensue. Airplane explodes, dogs and cats living together, who knows? So now, I don't want to fly at 2,300 pounds anymore. I kick 200 pounds worth of people out of my airplane. So I'm flying around at 2,100 pounds. So now, what is my new maneuvering speed? Your POH might very well list different maneuvering speeds getting slower and slower as your weight decreases. If you have that, great. If you don't, we're going to have to calculate it. And there's kind of 2 ways to do it. One is this big long formula right here from the Bold Method website, which has another good explanation on maneuvering speed. And it is your maximum gross maneuvering speed, which for our example is 97 knots, times the square root of your weight, now 2,100 pounds, divided by the maximum gross weight. That's a lot of math. We're going to run through it. Another good rule of thumb, if you don't want to do all that math, is for every 10% below gross, I should have been a doctor, take 5% off maneuvering speed. Or for every 2% below gross, take 1% off maneuvering speed, if you like to reduce the lowest common denominator. So let's run the big formula, and then we'll do this rule of thumb and just see how close this rule of thumb actually is. Let's take our maneuvering speed at maximum weight, which was 97 knots, and we're going to multiply that by the square root of our weight divided by gross weight. we come up with 92.68 and change knots. Normally I'd round up in that case. We're trying to protect the airplane, so I'm actually going to round down to 92 knots. All right, so let's kind of store that in a little variable. Now let's do the rule of thumb. For every 10% below gross, take 5% off maneuvering speed. Okay, well, 2100 divided by max gross of 2300, 91.3 a change percent. So we are about 8.6% below gross. So I need to take half of that. So I'm going to divide that by 2. So about 4.3 I need to take off of maneuvering speed. So I need to take about 4.21 knots off of maneuvering speed. 4.21 knots. 97 minus 4.21. 92.79 knots. Again, I would round down to, well, guess what? 92 knots. So either way, my new maneuvering speed at 2,100 pounds is 92 knots. So if I'm flying along here and I kick that 200 pounds out of the airplane, at this angle of attack, at 5 degrees, I now have 2,300 pounds worth of lift. That's going to command a climb. I don't want that, so I lower the nose. How much? I don't know. I might very well lower it back down to 3 degrees angle of attack. Doing 97 knots this time, just holding up 2,100 pounds. Well, I'm right back to my previous example, and if we haul back on the control wheel, we are going to exceed our load factor long before we get to our critical angle of attack. So I got to slow down. Now I have a target number. Pull the throttle back, increase the angle of attack to hold up my 2,100 pounds. Maybe it's 5 degrees, maybe it's 6 degrees, but it's going to be some angle of attack so that I'm going to hit the critical angle of attack long before I get to the maximum load factor, or G force, that the airplane can hold. Everything unloads and the wing protects itself. So there you go, maneuvering speed, one control input. We typically look at the elevator, and how it decreases with weight. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, please leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.